Hello, hello. I am Samantha Tomlinson.
And I'm Kevin Tracy. Welcome to Movie Reel, folks. So, what movie are we doing this week, Sam?
Um,
Oh, no, go ahead.
no, it doesn't matter. It wasn't important. I was gonna start off by saying I know how bummed you were that Kelsey got sent home on The Bachelor, but
I literally know nothing about The Bachelor. All I know is that my mom is obsessed with that.
when you text me saying like, "Hey, we can't record because my mom's having a Bachelor showing," and I said, ask your mom if she hates Victoria like me and my mom, and then you said, "Yeah, and Audrey's the worst too," and I thought you were just making up. At first, I thought you were either like, first I'm like, there's no Audrey, and then I thought, oh, maybe you were just coming up with some random girl name, like,
No, I thought. I thought you were talking about the movie because the character Audrey was like, it's like, oh, she's the fucking worst, and then it's like,
which I feel like it would have been even funnier
yeah,
though if because there's always, if you're gonna guess a girl on The Bachelor, it's always gonna be Lauren or Hannah. So if you had
yeah,
said one, if it was one of, if Audrey's name was Lauren or Hannah, I think that would have just made this whole thing so much better because then we would have been all
yeah.
completely on different pages for a lot longer.
I know, but I was just super confused. Like, yeah, Victoria's the worst, and then was thinking, wait, there's no one called Victoria in this movie. What are we talking about? I was just so confused.
That's Hank Azaria's name in this, Victoria.
Ah,
It's
yeah,
his name.
yeah,
Oh, his name is Victor.
animals.
It's short for Victoria,
Yeah, although no one calls him that. Everyone just calls him Animal. His nickname is Animal.
which is fine. There's never any explanation. It's just his nickname's Animal, which is like, okay. So we're talking about Godzilla,
The
1998.
starring Matthew Broderick by TriStar Pictures, the first American Godzilla movie, and oh boy, do I have a love-hate relationship with this movie.
It's terrible. And now let me preface this: it was terrible, but I really enjoyed it. It sucked though. I can't stress that enough.
I have so much material on this movie.
I actually was taking notes this time.
I I've been taking notes on this movie for such a long time.
I don't usually take notes. Everyone's asked me, like, oh, you should take notes. And I'm like, it's because I feel like if I take notes, I'll just be distracted and then I'm just
Yeah.
taking notes. And this is also a good example of, I mean, I know this movie's old, so that's the excuse. But in general, I prefer to see a movie in theaters because it forces me to sit there. Because if you were texting me and I was like, it took me about 3 hours to watch this 2 hour movie because I was stopping and I had dinner and things like that. Like,
Yeah, and that's one thing about this movie is that it's only 2 hours long, but it feels so much longer because there's so many times in this movie where it's like, okay, this is a good time for it to end, and they do that about 3 times in this movie.
for me,
Because
yeah.
towards the end, it's like, we managed to kill Godzilla. It's like, hooray! And it's like, all right, we destroyed the nest. Hooray!
Yay! I thought
Oh
it
no,
was
Godzilla's
over. I
back.
thought it was over. And then Godzilla
Yeah,
pops out. And I'm like, to be fair, I should have seen that coming since we did see Godzilla floating in the water underwater, but there wasn't like we didn't specific like I feel like that should have been but then I saw there was 20 minutes left and I'm like, "No!" But I got to say though, for me it feels long because they rush the beginning. Like the beginning, I will say, so the beginning is started off pretty strong. Um,
yeah,
the problem was that, well, okay, so going back, yeah, so Godzilla, so there's these Japanese people out at sea, and then some unknown force monster attacks the ship, and then there's Matthew Broderick who's working in Chernobyl, Ukraine.
yeah. Trying to collecting earthworms and examining the radiation off of them because that's what he does because he's the worm guy. Solid nickname.
It wasn't until, and also I love how the first scene with him, he's driving with headphones listening to Singing in the Rain, and I'm like, we got to make it clear that this is Matthew Broderick, who is a huge musical guy. He's been in several musicals. He's won Tonys. I don't know how many, but I know
Yeah.
he's won at least one.
Oh, and also And also, they need to make it clear that he's a socially awkward, nerdy guy with glasses because
Wasn't even that socially awkward. He was just
no. The thing is that he's literally the exact same character as the character from Stargate and the character from Independence Day, because it was
Jeff
the
Bloom?
same guys who made all three of those movies. Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum.
Because
I almost said Jeff Bloomberg.
Yeah, no, because literally every single one of like their main characters in all three of those movies is some nerdy white guy who's socially awkward and who has glasses. All three of those characters are the exact same. Prove me wrong.
There is an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine where they're going undercover at like an art gallery, and Andy Samberg says his person's name, and if anyone watches Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then Charles goes, "I'm something sights, and I wear glasses." That's his entire persona, is that he wears glasses.
Yeah, that's pretty much like all Matthew Broderick's character is. He's a nerdy guy who was like dating a girl in college, and she left with like no note or anything like 8 years ago.
There is no explanation.
We'll meet
for
her
that.
later, but yeah.
Yeah. So I gotta say though, so I haven't seen Stargate. I've seen parts of Independence Day, but it was a long time ago. But of course, which is usually either I haven't seen it or I've seen parts of it. That's what I always will say. But but Independence Day out of these three movies is definitely the best perceived. It got a sequel. Like I know it was like a 60 or 70 or something percent, which is kind of average, but it's definitely significantly better than Stargate and Godzilla. So I don't know. It was because you had sent me the Nostalgia Critic review, and I was watching it, and that just bothered me so much because it's like it did get better reviews, and he was just going off about how much it's so much worse than Stargate. And I'm like, is it really much more worse? I can see you not liking it as much, but there's a difference. But just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's shitty. But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So his what's his name? It's like Nick Tantopoulos or something.
Yeah, Nick Tantopoulos.
And he's being reassigned, and he's like, I'm in the middle of a 3-year study, and they're like, but you got something else to do. And I got confused because there's multiple locations in this movie, and it cuts to Tahiti, which is where what's that actor's name?
I forget his name, but basically he's the French guy from The Professional.
And Pink Panther and Flyboy.
Of course you know him from Pink Panther. Of course that's what you know him from.
My dad, though, he was on screen. My dad's like, that guy always plays a French guy. I'm like, well,
because he is French.
He is. Well, sorry, that was probably the first movie I ever saw him in, and then I saw him in something else. And I'm like, oh, it's the guy from Pink Panther.
This was the first movie I saw him in. This is what I know him as. It's like, oh yeah, he's the insurance guy.
But he is in
because that's his cover story. It's like he's an insurance salesman. So
the scene is they're in Tahiti, and then they're in Panama. I thought they were still in Tahiti. So later in the movie, when it says they're in Panama, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, like. There's so many locations in this movie.
In like the first 30 minutes, they jump between like 5 different locations. None of those locations are important in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you that now. Like as part of the story, as soon as they get to New York, like that's pretty much it. They're in New York. But
something that bothered me. Sorry, something that bothered me so much. So it cuts to New York. So they're in Panama. They're basically. Oh wait, actually. I'm jumping ahead, but anyway. They're in Panama.
When they're in Panama, the French guys are interviewing like the one survivor of.
That's Tahiti. That's Tahiti. You see what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, they all blur together and they're not important. Anyway, the French guys are interviewing the one Japanese survivor who, in like the beginning of the movie, like their ship got completely destroyed, and this guy's the only survivor, and they're like scanning him with like a Geiger counter, and he's just covered in like radiation. It's like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And they're like, what did you see, old man? And then this guy only says, Gojira, like over and over again. It's like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Is that what's supposed to be Godzilla in Japanese, or is that the actual name, and then America gets it all wrong and calls it Godzilla?
It's It was originally called Gojira, but then when in 1954, when the movie came overseas, it was retitled Godzilla to make it easier, and that name just stuck ever since.
Okay, because
So Gojira, Godzilla, like it's they're pretty much the same name. It just like Gojira loosely translates to like it was like they took the root words from the Japanese word of whale and gorilla, because that's more or less what they wanted the Godzilla to be. Because Godzilla was originally supposed to be like a direct like competition with King Kong, because that was like the biggest competitions, like King Kong, like King of the Monsters. Like, no, we're gonna make the King of the Monsters now.
yeah, so he says
So yeah,
Gojira.
yeah,
It then cuts to
yeah, Gojira
Panama with Nick and like all these
crew.
military people, and the main army guy is I don't know, I can't think of his name. He's the dad.
It's
He's
yeah,
the dad,
General
Sam
Hicks.
Witwicky's dad in Transformers.
Yeah, he's also the dad in Small Soldiers.
Which okay, I don't know anything about Small Soldiers.
We'll get to that later.
Anyway, so there's a part he's like, what am I? He's like, what am I looking at? And they're like, you're standing at it.
And it's a giant footprint.
And he's like, I don't see it. Where is it? I don't see it. Where is it? And it's as it's zooming out, showing a giant footprint. And it's like, we didn't need so many. I don't see it. Like, you could have just said it once and then we zoomed out. There are so many. It happens several times. There are scenes in this movie.
No.
It ends. There's an ending line. And then somebody, often Matthew Broderick, and responds with another line that's stupid and doesn't do anything. And there's just like, it happens multiple times. Like later in the movie when Hank Azaria's like, about the French guy to Matthew Broderick, he's like, "Where'd you find this guy? It could have just ended right there."
Like,
and he goes, "He's from France."
It's like, oh,
you
it's like, oh shit. It's like, yeah. Just you don't need to have the last line every second, Matthew Broderick. But yeah,
I thought it was not clear until like 20 minutes in why Matthew Broderick was there. I know why now.
He's there because
because he later when he's saying, I think this is like a apparition of something that's kind of mutated from radiation. I'm like, and that's what he deals with earthworms. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he deals with like long-term effective like radioactive mutation in animals, and that's pretty much what this origin of Godzilla is. That's one thing I don't like about this movie, is that they completely changed Godzilla's origin for this movie. Because originally Godzilla is, like more or less like a dinosaur who's been like mutated by like radiation from like fallout from like the bombings of like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it's pretty much just an allegory of that. And in this one, he is an iguana who is mutated by the French Polynesian nuclear bomb testings way back in the day, and has since
okay. So it is supposed to be an iguana, because in the beginning it just shows a bunch of shots of iguanas, and I'm like, are we just showing all lizards, or like?
He's a mutated iguana, and I don't really like that. I mean, Godzilla's design in this is it's pretty cool. It's like a really unique design. But after hearing like
it was
the special effects.
The special effects do not hold up at all. And part of that's age, but
oh no, even back in the day when I watched this as a kid, it's like I grew up watching like Jurassic Park and all these stuff, and when I found out that the same guy was originally tasked, the same guy who worked on Jurassic Park, who like made like the T-Rex and like the Velociraptors and stuff, was originally tasked to creating a Godzilla movie, because Toho sold the rights to Godzilla in 1992, and in 1994 they were going to make a Godzilla movie called Godzilla versus the Griffin. And Stan Winston, who did all the creature effects for Jurassic Park, created this like really cool looking Godzilla, which kind of looked more like an alligator dinosaur hybrid kind of mix. It was like a really cool, unique design, but it was a very like practical model.
Mm-hmm.
That eventually got shelved, and that got shelved for I think like to 1996. And by that point, there's like, let's just restart it, and we're going to create a trilogy of movies that Roland Emmerich is going to direct. and they started with this, and they did create the script treatment for the sequel, which you can find online, which sounds kind of interesting because it does introduce other monsters that Godzilla fights. It's not just Godzilla versus the military.
Yeah, Godzilla. Basically, I mean, forget even being Godzilla versus the military. It's really just Godzilla. It's not even Godzilla. It's just monster in New York. It could have been any monster. There wasn't anything specific to it being Godzilla.
Yeah, that's one thing I also don't like about this movie is that it's so generic that it's like a cookie cutter giant monster movie that has no name or brand affiliation, and that's really all this movie had going for it was like it had the Godzilla brand attached to it. And also they had like the marketing for this movie was really cool because they didn't show the monster at all, like aside from like his eye or like his feet or his tail or something like that. But like there were like advertisements like his foot is as large as this bus or his head is as big as this billboard, and then they had Taco Bell had its like line of like toys and stuff. Like they had like the drink cups that it was like a building, and like it was like Godzilla's head came out and would like wrap around the straw, and there were like a bunch of other like stuff like that.
There was I had read though that there were so I guess it was like Fruit of the Loom or something had released pictures, and they lost their rights to make merchandise, and apparently the studio, they sent fake pictures to all of like the companies that they're considering for merchandise, and they did this to see who they could trust. And I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad tactic. That's smart.
Yeah, that's actually that's
if it was only for a better movie.
Wow, that's really yeah. No, that's actually really smart branding right there. But yeah, no, I really liked it because you really don't see like a full shot of Godzilla until like I want to say like a good like 45 minutes into this movie, like 45 minutes to like an hour into it,
when he's like shots and bits, and you don't get like your first full visual of him until they're trying to draw him out.
That's a lot of fish. That's a lot of fish.
That scene was so. We're jumping ahead. That scene was so dumb. Because mainly it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that's line. A lot of fish. It was. I mean, the line was dumb, but they look at each other and then it cuts. The scene's over. I'm like, so not only was there no point to the line, if it just ended on the line, I would have had less of an issue with it. But
they left it such a huge pause for like audience laughter. It's like, was this supposed to be a joke, or it's like that's just an observation? Yes, that is a lot of fish. But yeah, also iguanas, as far as I know, iguanas don't eat fish. So why are they feeding Godzilla with fish? It's like, I know he's
big. It must eat fish.
Yeah, it's like I know he's like aquatic and he's like attacked fishing ships, but iguanas don't eat fish. Why is that the thing he's into this movie? I don't understand.
That is the least of this movie's worries. Going back, so they're okay. So first of all, when they're in Panama, we meet these like people, and like there's one who's a paleontologist. I thought this was going to be the group of people that kind of band together, and they're not that important. I mean, they're a little important, but not really.
They become more standout characters in the Godzilla animated show because they created an animated show that takes place like immediately after this, and it has like all those characters as like the core group. The reason why they made that show was because they originally planned on making a trilogy of movies, but that completely fell through. They weren't getting one, so it's like, we're gonna make an animated show, and it's just them teaming up with the baby that survived, spoiler, and using him and their knowledge of giant monsters now, because they're experts now, to fight other mutated animals that keep showing up around the world coincidentally, like after Godzilla died.
Something that bothers, I mean, I can't keep saying something that bothered me because that's like every second of this movie, but like something that I noticed that I took issue with. So Nick is, so when they get to, it just seemed like Nick knew way more, not just about Godzilla, I mean, but like he was the only one that was being like somewhat smart on like how we gotta draw it out, or when Godzilla wreaks havoc in New York and then it disappears, And they're like, how does it disappear? And everyone's like, maybe he went back and maybe he jumped back into the river. And he's like, no, this is an island where he could totally find a place to hide. He's got to still be there.
Yeah.
What's his knowledge base? You know what I mean? Like, the paleontologist makes a lot of sense. It made me think of, like, in Jurassic, in Lost World, in the second Jurassic Park, they, like, Julianne Moore's character made sense. She had knowledge and was also kind of hypothesizing what she knows, like, to make pretty reasonable, like, but, like, there was
she used her knowledge to make, like, accurate predictions.
It wasn't that he was making these predictions or making these, like, guesses. It was that based on his, like, study, what he does, like, what's his background, like, other than just radiation, it doesn't make sense. And if someone else, the supporting
was,
characters
like, the voice of reason.
Yes, so the supporting characters needed to step it up. The whole thing about supporting characters is that they support the protagonist, that they offer something that the protagonist can't. And the fact that he was just doing all the work of everybody, it bothered me. And so, okay, I don't know.
Oh, also, when I watched this movie last night for, like, the first time in a while, I learned that the person who was credited for doing the creature sound effects for this movie, for being basically Godzilla, was none other than Frank Welker,
who is the voice actor
for Freddy from Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo, as well as Megatron. For like the past 20 years, he's been like Freddy Jones from Scooby-Doo, and apparently he did this in 1998, as well as a bunch of other stuff.
Who was he?
Frank Welker. He was the voice for Godzilla. he did all the creature sound effects
for this movie. That's what he's credited as.
Odd.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you watch, like, anything Scooby-Doo
for the past 20 years,
or
Freddy Jones was Godzilla.
He's also a Boo from Aladdin. Like, okay, interesting, but okay.
Yeah.
He's also been Megatron for a while,
which I also didn't know.
Oh god, of course.
Yeah,
that was just really funny knowledge. It's like, wait, why does that name sound so familiar? And I look him up. It's like, oh, this guy.
Oh my god. So prior to them coming to New York, so Nick apparently has a ex-girlfriend, and she was not. I don't want to say even her.
She was useless.
She was useless in this movie.
If she was so she wants to be a reporter, and in the first thing we see her, she goes to ask her boss, and apparently she's being considered for another job, and he's like, let's talk about it tonight at dinner at your place. And she's like, you're married. And he's like, and you're beautiful.
It's like, yes,
it's like,
and you're
what?
beautiful.
And
me too. Hashtag me too.
What the hell? But also, like, if she was already a reporter, or we don't know that she's not a reporter.
Yeah. They emphasize that she's a reporting assistant. She's an assistant to, like, this main, like, news anchor.
But she wasn't that interesting. I didn't really care, and they were trying to build, like, oh, they're gonna get back together, which
it's like,
there was really no reason for it. And also, when they do, jumping ahead, when they do reunite, so she keeps seeing Nick because she does see Nick in the military on TV, and they're coming, and she's like, oh my god. And then she just uses this later, like, oh, I can go. The fact that she was only really using him for her career really pissed me off.
Oh yeah, she's absolutely the worst. And also, like, her point in, like, the only thing that she does in this movie is just further her own career and feel bad about doing it. So it's like, oh, she's doing really shitty things and feeling bad about it. Then why are you doing these things if you feel bad about it?
Yeah.
She like immediately feels guilty and second guesses herself throughout the entire movie.
It's because beforehand her friend and her friend's husband, who is Hank Azaria, who is the most New York person ever.
Yeah.
And it was just weird. I'm like, Hank Azaria, why? I love Hank Azaria, so when I saw that he was in this, I was like, oh, but
this'll be fun. No, it's not.
He was fine. I actually liked his character, other than he would try to be funny at times when it wasn't really called for it. But anyway, like, they basically say to her, nice guys finish last. And so
nice guys don't finish last.
That's nice. No, but she's just saying like, oh, you're too nice. Like you're never gonna get ahead, which is also, wow, that's shitty advice.
Also, there were two other characters in this movie that were very much like wasted opportunity, and that was Mayor Ebert and his assistant Siskel, who was just literally just a caricature of Robert Siskel and Ebert, the two movie critics that always bashed these guys' movies like Stargate and Independence Day.
They always bash these movies.
But after,
it's like, oh yeah, we have them in this monster movie, and they do nothing with them in this entire movie. They just make them seem mildly incompetent politicians.
Ebert was, one of them was his assistant. Ebert was politician that only cared. He's like, you made me shut down the city during election month? Like, only cares about his career. Like, it was just as bare bones as I could get. But I gotta say, apparently, the critics, after, when they saw that they were being made fun of, they're like, if you have such a problem with us, why not have like Godzilla stomp on us or like eat us or something? Like, and which is like the fact that they were saying
are criticizing on their own criticism
is perfect. Like, I'm like, you know what? That's great.
Because they do nothing with those characters. They just make them whine and complain. It's like, oh man, the city's getting the city's getting shut down. It's like, oh man, what are we gonna do? The military is just messing it all up.
The assistant is just the assistant. It's more the mayor that's just there to complain and like, you guys shut down the city, or you guys like, you don't even know. Like, it was just basic. I'm politician who does not care about anything and anyone and would rather put, like, I don't know. He was, I found him just irritating just based on his character, which
he was only there. He was only there to be like the
soundboard of, you guys are messing everything up. Because I swear to God, the military, whenever they encounter Godzilla,
they miss about 60% of the shots they take at him.
I've seen stormtroopers with better aim than this military. Oh my God, they shoot so many buildings. I get that Godzilla moves fast, but bullets are faster.
Later in the movie, there's Godzilla, and at least 20 plus planes just come out of nowhere, and I'm like, what the hell? It was so many. I'm like, is this Star Wars? Like, are these a bunch of TIE fighters? They just came out of nowhere, and there were
just come
so
out from the buildings.
Many of them. Like, there was just too many. It just was so ridiculous. But so the mayor basically there's oh my God, a dinosaur is loose in New York, and so the city's being evacuated, and the mayor basically goes to meet with the like military, and then puts a bug on him. And most of the next like hour of the movie, they're just cutting to scenes of them listening, which I thought was, I don't know. I kind of wish it was too many. It was just multiple scenes of they're listening. When it's like, if they were deemed more suspicious or more like, I don't know when, but at some point I'm like, oh, maybe they're the people that, well, you know, whatever, made him and blah, blah, blah. Like,
in a way they kind of did. They're just there to like clean up after it.
Yeah, but they should have been deemed more suspicious. There wasn't really. Well, I was like, okay, I guess maybe they're the bad guys. Do we need bad guys? Isn't Godzilla a bad guy enough? Like,
well, apparently, according to the new Godzilla movie, we needed human bad guys in it.
That's so dumb.
But there was a scene where one of the French like operatives, like when they first like try to like capture Godzilla with, or like take him down with like the bait trap, you see him like trying to like plant a bug on like the military surveillance equipment, and he's like wearing like, you know, like military fatigues and like camo to like blend in. It's like, oh, so it's like, it's not just the one bug, because I swear they focused on like the one bug on the mayor. It's like, you're saying the mayor hasn't left this one room for like this entire time? It's like, that one bug is on one shirt. It's like, as soon as he takes that off, that bug is basically useless.
Also, and how did no one notice this bug? Like, it's small, but I wouldn't say it's like, at some point someone's going to be like, oh, you got a thing on you, and then just like,
yeah, it's pretty noticeable on like the back of his collar. It's like it's not like it's like disguised as like a spare button or something.
It's a
Yeah.
metal microphone
Yeah.
poking out of this guy's neck. Like, what?
So, basically, they're trying to. It's not the military. They're in the city. They're trying to track down the monster, and they basically realize, like, he basically ate the subway. So Godzilla just eats everything, just
No,
everything.
He didn't eat the subway. He was burrowing.
Yes.
Like
he burrowed through that and like pretty much like created like this entire like elaborate network of tunnels through the subway, and it was just that was like his like means of escape, and that's how the military couldn't track him, because apparently he moves really fast while burrowing, which was not a thing Godzilla was known for at all. There were like several monsters that were decent at burrowing. Godzilla was not one of them. He could swim and he could walk. That was it.
So that's when Matthew Broderick is like, when I wanted to when I needed worms, I found digging for them didn't really work. I needed to draw them out. So that's the thing, is they basically use this idea multiple times.
They do it twice.
But this is, see, the movie rushed the beginning. The beginning was solid. The beginning was pretty solid. So I looked up in the very beginning. I looked up the score. Critics gave this movie a 16%, and audiences gave it a 28%, which I gotta say, it was bad, but I think I agree with the 28% more than the 16, at least for right now. Like, it was really bad, but 16 is very
it's an entertaining movie.
Yeah,
I
you're
grew
not
up
bored.
watching this movie
you're definitely not bored in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched this movie as like a kid, I pretty much like grew up on Jurassic Park. It's like, oh man, dinosaurs, this is so cool. And when I saw this movie, like this was like my first like introduction to Godzilla. Like this is my gateway drug to like the entire series. So I am thankful for that. This was my gateway drug.
Yeah,
it was just really cool. It's like, oh man, a giant monster and it's fighting the military. That's so cool.
Yeah, the beginning is solid. It just, I think they should have maybe. They should have dealt, because they wanted the whole reveal of Godzilla, and I get it, and there are solid reveals, but the problem is, it was too rushed. I just think maybe if they had a scene, they had needed to have something else happen before it hits New York. Maybe like they're dealing with him on a boat or something. Which, because to be fair, there are 2 boat incidences, but maybe one with our hero and all of like the team he's working with.
Or they managed to find like some like footage of like one of the attacks, and they're like, what the hell is this? Like, I've never seen anything like this. We're dealing with something that we've never encountered before. Or
like something like that. Like they see the footage,
not the aftermath.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that would have been cool.
It was just there. So there's the very first scene where the Japanese people in their boat, and that goes under, and then there are other people, and the same thing. Like, it's just, we needed something else with our heroes, and because like we get to New York like 20 minutes or so in, like 20 plus minutes in, which is pretty quick, and I was okay with that up until this movie. It was just like it fell flat on its face. It was like they were just running out of ideas. I honestly am like, I have no idea what's gonna happen or where it's gonna go. I feel, and I don't know. Anyways,
this movie is kind of on the weaker side, like especially compared with like the other Godzilla movies, and it's because of that Toho literally, like when they like got the rights back, they bought the rights to this movie so they could introduce Zilla into the canon and into like one of their timelines, just so they could say that wasn't Godzilla, and say it's like, oh yeah, did you hear that the Americans like killed like Godzilla in New York? It's like, no, our research team took a look at it. It was just a Godzilla. It was just a creature that looked like Godzilla. Everyone's just gonna call it Zilla from now on.
It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then he shows up again in Godzilla Final Wars and dies immediately.
So dumb.
It was, and they purposely make him like unfinished, like an unfinished like CGI model, especially compared to like the other monsters. He looks like completely like undone. Like he's not finished. So they purposely make him look as crappy as possible, and then he gets killed by the actual Godzilla in like Australia in like the matter of like seconds. He just gets eviscerated.
So, anyway, so yeah, that's stupid. So there's a
it's really weird. Yeah.
So they decide to. So basically, they decide to draw out the monster by giving it fish, which
just
I didn't
a bunch of dump trucks of fish in the middle of.
I'll be honest, I didn't think about it because I was still like, sure, fish, and then it wasn't until when I was watching the Nostalgia Critic review where I'm like, oh yeah, why would it eat fish?
Iguanas don't eat fish.
I mean, it's big, but then again, is like a ladybug gonna really satisfy it? Like maybe it also has major. I don't know anything about lizards. Do they have? I'm sure I know some have to have teeth.
Yeah, no, I mean there are some species of like lizards and like reptiles that are like carnivorous, and I think some of them are even like cannibalistic. But yeah, like some do eat like smaller fish, but like a Komodo dragon, I think like Komodo dragons are like pretty much like they're only carnivores. Like they only eat like goats and sometimes people.
Goats and the occasional person.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Komodo dragons, like they have like they kind of like got like the same thing as like pit bulls. Like they have like their jaws like completely locked, but their saliva is like completely like toxic. It's like it's super poisonous and like full of bacteria. So like even if you manage to get your hand out, you might need to amputate.
I mean, look on the bright side, you'll get a Luke Skywalker hand.
Hell yeah, robot hand.
When we were in Mexico and we were at the Tulum, which is like a bunch of like ruins and that type of thing. And there were iguanas everywhere. They were like squirrels here. They're just everywhere. And my dad just decided to keep angering one because it would puff out and react. I mean, he didn't do anything that stupid, but it was just like, like, why are you angering this wild animal just to do it? I don't know. That just made me think of that.
What was he trying to feed it? A lot of fish?
Yes, he's like, you're an animal. Animals like fish.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't the fact that it's like they just think that he eats fish. Like
Godzilla is like,
there's evidence that he eats fish because he's constantly attacking like fishing ships and like all of like their cargo is missing or like partially
destroyed. Is like,
so I'll give it. It's not on the characters. It's on
the writing.
It's on the writing, and it's on Godzilla for not knowing its own lore. But they're just dumping truckloads of fish. And I mean, it is a solid plan. And then this is when Matthew Broderick has his brilliant line, that's a lot of fish. And then the scene cuts. There's like a long pause. They look at each other, and it's not funny. It's awkward. There's no need for it. It really, I mean, again, like I said before, for me, it's as stupid as the line is. My bigger issue is that they look at each other. Him and is it O'Neill?
Yeah, it's Colonel O'Neill and General Hicks are like the main like military guys that are.
Hicks is Sam Witwicky's dad.
Yeah. They're pretty much like the only like major like military figures in this movie. There are other like major there are other military figures, but they are never given any names other than General and like Captain.
I didn't even like I think I knew Hicks later. I think it didn't sink in what their names were until later. It was just this guy and Soldier who seems very nervous around the other it's
angry military general and stuttering lieutenant.
Yes.
That's their characters. Hicks constantly yells and berates everyone because like we need to kill this damn thing. He's pretty much like the J. Jonah Jameson of this. Like
I need pictures of Spider-Man. I need body bags of Godzilla. Stat. and then stuttering O'Neill.
And then after Godzilla,
we gotta get this.
After Godzilla dies, he puts on Godzilla's like skin and pretends to be him, just like J. Jonah.
I forget about that scene that he's wearing
Spider-Man's suit in that movie. I totally forgot about that. God.
So anyway,
he has like such a he really wants to kill Godzilla.
Yeah.
Like he almost has like a personal vendetta that this thing exists.
Like it's like an affront to nature and personally offends him.
Yeah.
And it's like,
why does he hate Godzilla so much? Like he really has a hard on for killing Godzilla right now.
Can
you
explain?
Yeah.
Possibly why?
So basically, yeah, they decided to draw him out, and just before this, Matthew Broderick gets his Polaroid camera to take pictures, and yeah, there's just no. It was not that I think that's a really. I don't know. It just there was no need for it. Like,
I mean, I would take souvenirs
No,
of this. That's awesome.
It's like I'm on an operation, a top secret operation to hunt down a giant 50-foot iguana. Like that sounds freaking awesome. I want to take pictures of that.
It's not the logic of what's going. It's more just that it doesn't. It happens in this one scene. He's taking a picture of everything. Then he's noticing. What was it with the manhole covers? Is that they needed them open so he could smell them?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so he could smell them, and I don't know, it was just a reason for him to be kind of away from everyone so he can get, like,
face to face with Godzilla.
I thought this was going to be his How to Train Your Dragon moment, and he was going to stick out his hand and like, close his eyes and become friends with Godzilla.
Yeah, because literally Godzilla gets, like, right up in his face.
It's just like, what is...
do anything.
Like Godzilla's... Yeah, like Godzilla's never seen a human before, apparently, in the first 30 minutes of this movie, even though he's rampaged through New York for an hour before this. They literally get like right up into each other's face. Matthew Broderick takes a picture of him, and then Godzilla roars in his face, and a bunch of like fish carcasses and like spit gets like thrown at him, and then Godzilla like walks over, accidentally steps on like a few of the military cars. They're all scrambling. It's like, holy shit, this thing's actually working, and this thing's here.
They're
and then Godzilla starts eating.
Matthew Broderick is like using his hands, like, no, like don't shoot it. Which, I mean, I don't know. Part of me kind of liked it because he's not doing anything. Maybe it's just there were scenes where they were trying to kind of, I know this is the wrong word, but humanize it. Like,
yeah, they were trying to pull like a King Kong moment. It's like, 'twas beauty who killed the beast, almost. It's like, no, this thing's just an animal. Like, there's really nothing humanizing about it.
Like, when we find out that it's pregnant, like, to me, it made it, like, are we really gonna... It stopped making me wanting them to defeat it. Like...
Yeah.
You know, they kept giving us all of these moments, and at the end it's like, why should... You know what? I'm on Godzilla's side. You just killed all of his babies. Like... I don't know, it was just weird. It's like they couldn't decide. They couldn't make up their mind. It's like, make him just a monster or don't.
Or make him like a humanizing factor. It's like, yeah, they kept like jumping back and forth between like him being like this super unkillable destructive force and him being like just an animal. Like they kept like jumping back and forth between these two perspectives of like, it's like, oh no, he's just an animal doing like what comes naturally to him, and that is like preparing like a nest and like feeding his young. Because the one thing about this movie is that they make Godzilla asexual, so he like lays like 300 plus eggs in like the middle of Madison Square Garden that we find out like the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So all of his children
are asexual, and they can all lay eggs as well.
So
this is a problem.
So Audrey decides she wants to go with her boss. She's like, I know someone on the inside, and he's like, no, this is when the big boys go to play. And it's like, oh god. So she steals her boss's badge and puts her picture on it and sneaks in, and she bumps into... So Nick collects some blood, and he buys a bunch of like pregnancy tests.
I honestly don't know why that was his first thought. It's like, I got a bunch of blood. Let's just sit on some pregnancy tests.
Like,
I mean, I get what? Like there was no.
They never explain why he. That was.
It's good.
There was no explanation.
But there's no explanation on why exactly.
Yeah, it's like what? Why?
That's why I didn't even think about that. But there's no.
Yeah, they never explain like.
I think maybe.
Yeah, they never explain
why he wants to like instinctually is like, this thing might be pregnant. It's like, what? Why do you think that? Explain why you think this.
I mean, if anything, again, if anything, if he wasn't specifically, it's fine that his job is like he specializes in radiation, but if he had more of a background for like biology or whatever, and maybe was just running basic tests in the blood, and from there found it was pregnant. Yeah, it wasn't. It was kind of random that he was just buying pregnancy test. And this is when he bumps into Audrey,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Hi." Oh, it's kind of awkward,
Yeah.
and then they leave, and she's like,
yeah.
"You still mad at me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you left without a note or anything, so I guess so." And I'm like, he did not come off mad. There was no indication at all that he was angry. He just was like, "Oh my god, hi." Like, until she said, "Are you angry?" I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, because literally, yeah, because literally, like earlier on in the movie, when it's like, I was like, who's the stiff that you're watching on TV? It's like, oh, that's Nick. He was like my high school sweetheart. It's like,
Oh,
Or
you
college.
guys sounded like
he sounded like he was like wanted to marry you. It's like, that's the thing. He did propose to me, and yeah, apparently she left 8 years like.
There's no
like-
there's no
yeah, she
explanation
left and
on
she
that
never
either.
said like she was leaving.
There's no explanation on that either. They just, her friends are like, "Oh, 4 years. I'm surprised he didn't propose." And she's like, "That's the problem. He did." And then later, yeah, she just left. There's no explanation on why she left. There's nothing. And then until later, so after they meet and he has all the pregnancy tests, they're back in his tent. He's running some tests, finds out that it's pregnant, and
He like runs off to like tell like, it's like, General Hicks,
It's like the thing's pregnant.
Oh, but really quick,
she
steals his stuff.
Oh yeah, so really quick before that. So he's testing it, and she's like, and I thought they were going to go, "Oh, so he's a she," which, fair enough. She's like, "But if it's the first of its kind, how is it
pregnant?
How's it pregnant?" And he's like, unless it, it's asexual and produces asexual." And she's like, "Where's the fun in that?" And I was like, ugh.
Yeah,
that
was pretty funny though.
I thought it was stupid because it was like,
well, it's stupid, but I thought it was pretty
funny.
Okay,
I mean,
fine.
Compared to the other lines in the movie,
I'll give this to
that's
you.
a solid joke.
It's a solid joke.
Yeah, that's a solid joke compared to the other one.
It was just like, I don't know.
It's not a funny one.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, but compared to like the other stuff in this movie, that is like gold.
So he leaves to go tell them, "Hey, it's pregnant." She then steals the tape of the French guy asking, "What did you see?" And he's saying, "Gojira." She then takes it and then does her own like newscast, and then it's taken by
the main
boss,
news anchor
which
guy.
I'm surprised she didn't get fired for this. Like, not doing her note, she took her boss's pass and then like did her own newscast, and then he took it. But why? How would she not get in trouble for this? There seemed to be no other than Nick being during this scene. This is when Nick, he's telling them, "I think the monster's pregnant. We got to find the nest, because if he's already laid eggs, they're gonna hatch, and then we're gonna have a bigger problem." And this is when the news story comes out, and he's like, "No, I didn't talk to anyone." And then they fire him, which I thought, who cares if. Like, I thought there was no reason to fire him because...
Well, they had, like, a huge, like, media blackout on, like, this entire situation, and when you have, like, a huge leak like this, where it's, like, the entire origin of this creature up until that point, and mention him by name, is like, he's a huge, like, information leak, and like, even though he's been, like, an asset to the team, he's like, no, that's a huge, like, breach of trust.
Like, we can't...
Yeah,
like,
but it was
they can't trust him, and it's a huge, like, data leak. It's like, they can't trust any information going further with him involved.
I mean, okay, I got why they fired him. I just thought he's too much of an asset to it. Just seems like it didn't really seem worth it to me to fire him. Maybe just, I don't know. But anyway, so he then and then Audrey,
he gets picked up by the French guy.
Or before this, Audrey's on the phone like with someone, and then she sees him and she's like, "Why are you leaving? Is it because of me?" And it's like, do you just know everything? And he's like, "Well, what did you think?" And she's like, you never said it was off the record." And he's like, "I shouldn't have to," which is fair. But also...
It's pretty much just like her, like, is like, "Sorry, I'm a bitch." It's like,
that's literally like what she did.
I was more annoyed because I thought right then this would have made more sense for her to already be a reporter, because maybe that was their issue, was that she cared more about her. Maybe that's why she left, or maybe that's why they didn't, like, she cared more about her work and her career than him. Like, that would have given a reason for them to break up. We don't really know why they broke up, and we don't really...
I don't know.
It just
She's afraid of commitment. I don't know.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it just didn't seem...
Yeah.
I think her struggling with her career was just kind of, I didn't really care. I think it didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything for the story other than for her.
It was literally just like a side story from like Sex and the City. It's like, I don't care about your struggling news report career. It's like, we want to focus on the giant monster that's destroying the city, not your Sex and the City bullshit going on, Audrey.
She's like, yeah. Yeah, there's an episode. Yeah, don't you remember that episode of Sex and the City where their Godzilla is just walking around, and they're like, whoa, I guess he's really Mr. Big.
Okay, I swear to God, if there's ever an episode of Sex and the City where Godzilla's in it, I will watch that show.
I tried watching it, and it was stressing me out. I'm like, I can't keep watching this. It was stressing me out because I'm like, I don't want to be this single in my mid-30s. Like, if I'm in my 20s, fine. If they're all in their like 30s, and like, just, I don't know. It's just, I'm like, I don't want to live this life. I don't want to live this life.
So your logic is, if you don't watch it, you won't become it?
I always know if I want to watch something, I want it to be an escape. Like, I was watching Mom, for example, with Allison Janney and Anna Faris, and that I kind of stopped. I mean, it was funny and I liked it, but that I kind of stopped because, like, their life just sucks really sucks, and I don't know. I want an escape. I don't want to be stressed out about my own problems. Like,
okay, so
back to the movie. So
I wasn't at all stressed out about a giant lizard like taking over the city, but
or the world with its offspring
that can like infinitely like reproduce and multiply.
So Nick's on his way to the airport, and then the driver locks the doors. He's like, "What's going on? It's the French guy."
It's like, hey, you're that guy in Panama, the insurance salesman. It's like, what are you doing here? It's like, I need to take you with me. It's like, that was a horrible French accent. I don't know why I went Russian, but yeah, he takes him to like this warehouse that is just full of guns and like grenades, like full like military like surplus like hardware. And it's like, how'd you get all this stuff in the country? This is America. You can buy anything. It's like,
okay, that's pretty funny.
That's accurate. But
that's really funny.
This, Hank Azaria, so his character
follows.
He gets the second Godzilla starts like terrorizing. He goes out with his camera, and now he's like everyone's favorite cameraman person. That's got it. Like he's like, no, everybody wants him, and so he follows. He said he was gonna like try to talk sense into Nick. Was like, what do you mean talk sense into him? Like, what's the about what? Like, he said he's gonna talk sense into him, and then he sees like he follows him with the French guy. And I'm surprised that no one noticed that this van was just behind them.
Yeah,
and
he's not
like, very conspicuous.
So, and they're like, so they, yeah, and then they find out that, sir, you've seen this more. You can explain it better. But they like,
the French guys explains like, yeah, the French guys like basically like recruit Nick. Is like, we think you might be right about the nest, and we know that the military isn't taking this seriously. We want you to take us. We're going to take you into the city so we can find the nest and destroy it, because you're the only one who thinks that the nest is a viable threat like we do. So they basically recruit him and saying like, we're going to sneak into the city tonight. And Hank Azaria somehow hears this conversation perfectly, even though he's outside the warehouse in the rain.
It rains this whole movie. There's maybe like 2 minutes where it's not raining. And I was thinking, I'm like, does this just add to the dramatics? Is there a reason that it's raining? Like, does Godzilla prefer wet, moist climates? Like, I was just thinking there's no real reason.
I think iguanas do. I think iguanas.
Oh, you
but
know what?
I don't.
Like, Godzilla is not like attached to the rain. Like, the weather and like Godzilla is like, that's not really like a thing that is like important at all. Like, there's a movie where he's like falls into a volcano and then like erupts from that, like the next film. And then there's another one where he's like frozen in a glacier.
Actually, there's several where he's frozen in a glacier.
Captain America style.
One time he's like frozen in a glacier for.
Now
like
I'm picturing Godzilla as in with the Avengers.
There actually was a crossover with I think Marvel or DC where Godzilla does fight like the Avengers. And then there's another one called there was like a superhero. There was like this guy who turns into like this Godzilla like monster called like King Kaiju or something like that, and it's literally just like picture like Godzilla, but like his like entire chest is like a red, white, and blue like American flag stripes. It's really stupid.
I gotta say though, Godzilla, when the scene where Matthew Broderick first sees him, it shows his like it shows Godzilla's arms, and he's got like pecs, and like he's like ripped, which I'm like, okay, like I'm like, good for you, buddy. Like I was just like, damn, why does Godzilla have a rockin' bod? It's unsettling. Like, so
Why does Godzilla have a rockin' bod? That is a sentence I never thought I would ever hear.
that'll be the summary for what this episode's about.
Yeah, Godzilla's rockin' bod.
Anyway, he teams up with the French guys, and then Hank Azaria goes to his house where his wife is basically hosting all these people who, I guess, their house was destroyed by Godzilla, and he finds Audrey.
They evacuated all of Manhattan, so there's just
like thousands of refugees, and it's like she just has like 40 of them in their one house, in their like 2-bedroom like house. Like,
so
what?
Yeah, and Audrey is crying and all upset, and the thing is, she's upset about Nick because she messed everything up. Fine, okay, but it just, I don't know. I feel like there just needed to be like more other than Nick getting kicked off the project. There needed to be more of a like repercussion, like her job, for example. Like, you know, it would have made, because they wanted the line. I feel like they didn't have her fired or anything because they specifically wanted the line at the end where her boss is like, "We did it," and she's like, "We did it.
I quit."
I quit." They wanted her to quit. Which anything they could have just had him going, "You're hired," and her being like, "Fine, okay, I quit." Like which is stupid, but I feel like there just need to be more repercussions on her end other than just Nick. But anyway, so they decide to, or Hank convinces her, Hank Azaria. I don't know what Animal is his name.
Yeah, Animal.
I keep wanting to call him Hank. They convince her to go, like, they're gonna go. I thought they were just gonna be like, they're still just trying to get a news story. It's like all these people are so desperate to get a news story. It's like there's a giant lizard wreaking havoc. Just go home and stay there. It's so, all these people, it's like they're just the worst of the worst, and it's so frustrating. It's like a Neil Breen film where they're obviously bad. Like, anyway, so and then so Matthew Broderick and the French people, they sneak in and they're all chewing gum. And
yeah, it's like it makes us look more American. Is the logic behind that? It's
which
like,
I'm like, I mean,
all right.
I mean, sure, maybe not all of them chewing gum. Maybe just like one of them. They were just all, and then when they get to the tunnel and the guy's like, "Why are you here?" And they're all just chewing gum. Like,
yeah. And whenever and
when Nick answers for them, it's like, "I didn't ask you, soldiers." Like, I was like, "Oh, okay." So
the main like
French
French guy is all
his voice or recognize his face.
Yeah, he literally just like answers as if he's Elvis. He does like "Oh, thank you very much." It's like, what? That works. They like get through. It's like, and Nick looks at him. It's like, Elvis Presley movies. He was the king. It's like, what the? Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
So they get into the tunnel, and so apparently Godzilla, has laid. They find the eggs. Godzilla has laid like 200 eggs in Madison Square Garden. And so then he keeps cutting back and forth between Animal and
Audrey, who have been following them the entire time, like 50 feet behind them with their flashlights flailing everywhere. And somehow these like 5 French guys and Nick don't notice this.
But also, not even that they don't notice. I thought that they were like, "We want to help. We want to help you find the eggs. We want to like." I thought it was going to be a little more campy, which, not that I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I thought they were going to like band together, and they did, but only when they had to, not like.
Yeah.
It was just they were
Yeah,
still
no, they
trying
were
to get a story.
Yeah, they were just trailing behind. It's like, oh, this is the great story. It's like, have you learned nothing? It's like, this is literally the reason why you like Nick hates you, is because you're like valuing the story over like everything else.
So, they see the sign like for Madison Square Garden, and Hank Azaria's like, they just destroyed the garden. Now I'm pissed.
Yeah, it's like he's like they make him so overly New York that it makes it seem like he's not like a New Yorker, because it's like, okay, I get New Yorkers like prioritize like they love Madison Square Garden, but it's like, but at the cost of like
Also,
everything else that's happened.
I was thinking
like that's what you're focusing.
Godzilla caused so much damage, way more than any damage in like Avengers. I was thinking of this. I'm like, they're complaining about the damage in Avengers when Godzilla did like 3 times as much. And there's like a scene where Godzilla like is even walking and his tail just hits a building and just puts a hole in it, and it's just like, I mean, it's made of brick. That's pretty sturdy. I mean, he might crack it, but is he really good? Is his tail just lightly tapping it just gonna just demolish everything? Like, what is it made of? Like,
well, apparently his skin is like completely bulletproof, because the military, even when the military does hit Godzilla, he only bleeds like a little bit. Like they find like a pool of blood like when they first like tried like the bait trap, but we never see like any physical damage on Godzilla, which I feel like was a missed opportunity, because it's like, oh, we need to show that Godzilla like is vulnerable, because at the end of the movie he gets taken down by like 8 missiles from jets. It's like, that's what kills him? You just needed to hold him still to fire a couple missiles at him? You fired like 40 missiles at him throughout the span of this movie. A couple of them had to have hit him and slow him down. Like, you guys couldn't have missed every missile in this movie, even though there's like, you guys missed 60% of your shots. I get that he moves fast, but bullets and missiles move faster than him.
There is a Family Guy stormtrooper joke where they're running away and the stormtroopers are just shooting in the wrong direction, or one of them has their gun behind them just shooting. It's like that. Like, yeah, they're just... Yeah. Godzilla is not going down because they're either all terrible shots or no, they're all terrible shots because it's a movie, because he can't die yet. Anyway, so... Yeah. Oh, actually, I think just before they find the eggs, there is a Navy attack.
Yeah, they have another bait. Yeah, they have another like lure them out with like a bait trap.
I get that they want
Central Park.
It's just action. There's not even too much action. Just there's too many battles in this movie.
I mean, as far as a Godzilla movie, this is pretty on par.
Okay, then I don't know. It just seemed like there were so many attacks on. I don't know. They just needed to get rid of like 1 or 2.
Yeah, no. For as far as a Godzilla movie, this is like pretty much like, I think like a little bit above par in terms of like how much is like an action like scene. And usually like the action scenes in Godzilla movies go on way longer, but only because there's a little bit fewer.
Yeah. Okay.
But like they're pretty solid. I mean, some of them are like really campy because of like, you know, 60s and 70s were weird for Godzilla. Yeah. Just look up Godzilla versus Megalon, and you'll thank me later, folks. That is the goofiest fight in the entire series, in my opinion.
So, there's an attack. We think Godzilla's dead, and I mean,
yeah, they fire like a couple like torpedoes at him with some submarines in the Hudson Bay, and you just see him like trying to burrow into a wall, and there's just this huge dust cloud, and the 2 torpedoes hit like where we think Godzilla is, and they're all celebrating. It's like, yeah, direct hit, target destroyed, and we just see Godzilla like kind of like floating in the water, but you hear him groans like, is he dead or is he just knocked out? It's like, is he dying, or is it like, did he just bump his head? Like, what's going on?
You know, in the logic of everyone, he has to be dead. Which, I don't know. I should have assumed he was alive. I don't know, because this was clearly not the biggest issue by this point. It was the finding the eggs. So they find the nest. The eggs are like bigger than, you know, the average person.
Yeah, they're like 8 feet tall, 200 plus eggs.
And then one starts cracking. Then the other. they're all
Yeah.
hatching. Oh no!
They all hatch coincidentally as they're like about to blow up the place, and they realize like we don't have enough bombs.
The next, so they are strapping bombs to the eggs, and that was the thing because they were kind of like going back and forth between humanizing Godzilla. I'm like, do we want to kill the eggs? Do we not? Like, I honestly wasn't even sure what the motive. I assumed it was to kill them because that made the most sense. But because they were like, there's egg, like they were trying.
Like, these are babies.
They're babies. That was the thing. So they're gonna blow up the eggs, and then they start hatching, and then the next 10 minutes just becomes like the Velociraptor
Jurassic Park
scene in
from Jurassic Park.
It just turned into Jurassic Park, and it just turned into an insanely shittier version of Jurassic Park. There was even a scene where when Audrey and Hank then they're basically they're like 50 feet away from Matthew Broderick, and so they're getting caught in all this, and then they're trying to run. And there was a scene, I think based on just the way the room was designed, I was like, I was really like, are you kidding me? I thought it was going to be the same as the like raptor scene of when the kids are in the kitchen.
Oh, in the kitchen scene.
That's how it, like, they're in like a pool, and then Hank is like,
they're in like the Knicks locker room.
He's like, oh my god, and they're like, what? And she's like, and he's like, this is for the Knicks shower.
And she's just like annoyed, and she just like hits him. It's like,
animal.
Like, see, that was kind of a funny joke. It was stupid, but that was actually somewhat funny. But and also they lasted. I thought they were gonna bump into each other at some point. It took them forever to finally all catch up. But
yeah, and they only meet up completely by accident because the air vent that they were in crashes like right on top of Nick's.
So before
Audrey, what are you doing here?
But before they reunite,
like he's not even
mad that she followed him. He's just like, what are you doing here? Funny meeting you here. Like he's like catching up with like an old friend, even though it's like, dude, last time you saw her, she like screwed you over. So like, why are you
not fazed by this?
Like his motive, it made no sense. But I definitely thought that. But so before this though, all the circuits are jammed. They're stuck in here with. They looked like Velociraptors too, ish, or they look like more like mini baby T-Rexes. But anyway, they Felipe's like, Matthew Broderick, you got to go on your own, and we see, unfortunately,
Matthew Broderick, you need to go.
Which he goes on his own, and I'm like, for what? I was getting so lost. He then goes on the elevator and has to fight off the baby Godzillas, and then he comes to a floor, and they're all like wreaking havoc and stealing popcorn, and he's like, wrong floor. And I could totally see that. I'm like, I mean, I guess they didn't show Godzilla or the design for it in the commercials or the trailer, but I'm like, I could totally see that being a commercial. Like Godzilla, rated PG-13, and then wrong floor, and then like cut, you know what I mean? Like it totally played into that. But which I'm like, okay, that line's not bad.
It literally just like cuts to like the French team, and like they're all dying except for like the main guy Philippe, and like he's telling Nick's like, you need to get out of here, you need to contact the military, just destroy this building, me and my men will hold them off as long as we can, you need to get out of here and like contact
he comes off the elevator and he's just back where he started. I'm like, what was the point of all this?
To prove that these things got out and that they're unstoppable, and they killed the entire French team
except for Philippe,
like, what, 3 people?
They go in with like 5 guys.
Even though like the entire movie, there's like 8 or 10 of them. It's like you're only bringing like 5 guys, really?
And this is when the vent crashes. Hank Azaria and Audrey are like, and so then they all like, okay, well we gotta. She's like, I have a way to get a message to the outside.
And they're just gonna like
do like a live broadcast from like their newsroom that they used to cover the games with, and it's like we need to tell everyone. It's like, get up to the newsroom now.
And they're on their way there, or was it? Yeah, I think it's during this part. They're running, and or no, maybe it's after. I don't know when this part happens, but they're running.
Okay, well, explain.
Matthew Broderick is last. He's behind them, and Audrey's like, "This way, come on!" And I'm like, he knows.
That's after.
Oh,
yeah, that's after.
We'll talk about after. But anyway, so they get into like the news room, control room
room,
area. And so they're able to contact the guy that originally made Audrey's
promo
news,
tape,
and then he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna put you on live. And I'm like, why? Like,
because
you
it's
helped
his
her.
job.
I know, but he helped her before.
Yeah, but that was that was something like very minor. Like he can't just put someone like on live TV because he feels like it. Like that would cost him his job. Him helping her with the story, that's different because he can kind of do that anonymously. If he does this, like, oh no, I'm directly putting my ass on the line.
But he didn't say it like with that. Like there was no. He just kind of did it like an asshole. Like I'm not putting you on live. It's like
I feel like that was kind of implied. It's like no, like I'm gonna get in trouble for this.
It's like I've already helped you.
I didn't think there was any. To me that wasn't clear. Mainly because of his tone. He came off way more like an asshole than his ass being on the line. Which if they wanted to do that,
but
he could have. I don't know. He could have. The fact that he responds to them later, telling them to get out. If he had done something right there, like no, I can't. Like there was no indication that he wasn't being an asshole. At least that's how I took it.
But yeah, Hank Azaria is like, come on, Bob, is like, or whatever his name is. He like shows like the nest and like all like they're basically raptors, the baby Godzillas. And it's like, come on, Nick, come on. And it's like, yeah, give me a sec. And he puts them in live, and it's like, and then the whole like military station sees that and all that, and it's like, okay, you guys have 6 minutes to get out of this building. It's like, oh, that's cutting it real close.
During the news part though, so the music that was playing, there was just, and the way Matthew Broderick was talking, there was just no urgency in any of it. And I'm like, he's literally saying, if not, they could replace us as the dominant species. It's like, that's concerning. That's bad. Why aren't you? It was just they all just sounded so like too matter of factly and nonchalant about it. And I'm like, you could act a little. I thought they were gonna act a little more urgent. Like we're trapped inside. Like it was just all about Audrey's career.
Yeah, they literally could have like focused on the fact that there's like, there's some like right out the door, and you could hear like Philippe like take like some shots in like the background, or like the camera like falls over and you just see them bust in the door. It's like make it like kind of exciting. It's like that would have been a really cool scene if like you see like the public actually sees like, oh man, these things aren't to mess with. Like we really need to destroy this building.
Yeah. So then the military decides to destroy it. They got 6.5 minutes to get out. And then this is the scene where the French guy goes, he blows up or he shoots the glass in front of them and jumps down.
Yeah, he shoots the window and then
he rappels out, and it's like, where'd you find this guy? Oh, he's from France.
I'm like, see, it could have just said, where'd you find this guy? There was no need to say he's from France. That didn't really solve anything. You didn't go to France and find him. There was just multiple times. It was just, there's a decent ending line. Be done. It's over. And then, no, we gotta have another stupid line. And it's usually Matthew Broderick that gave the dumb line.
He always, they basically like make it so it's like he has to be the one who has the last line. And he has the last line in this movie too.
And, so they propel down.
They rappel down, and it's like they've eaten all the fish. He focuses so much on that he doesn't
follow everyone else, and that's why he's trailing behind.
So then they're running.
Dude, priorities. You got 5 minutes.
So and then Audrey's just like, "Come on, Nick, this way." And I'm like, "Yeah, he can see where you're going. He's gonna follow." And then they come, "No, not this way." And then there's can we just call them velociraptors? Like that's...
Yeah, they're raptors. Yeah, they get chased by a pack of raptors, and Nick uses the magic gumball to trip them over by like dumping over like a thing of like gumball like machine, and they all trip over that like a bunch of newborn
whatever.
Deer.
Like I'll give him that, but my bigger issue was that after that it worked. It slowed them down, and he stops to watch. I'm like, why? There was just keep going. Like if you want to look for maybe 1 second or half a second. He stood there for way too long.
Yeah, he like peeks. He's like peeking around the corner, like he's like I did that. Like he's watching like an epic prank video. It's like pranked you.
The scene. It's like the scene in Stranger Things where Sean Astin. It said there was some picture video I saw after that said like, he would have survived. Bob would have survived if he didn't stop to look at the woman he loved. And then, because then he gets attacked by the demodogs. But like, even then, that was different. It didn't come off nearly as like, why are you just standing there doing nothing? Like, just so. Anyway,
run, dude, run!
They get to they get to
like
the lobby.
The lobby, like
and
right,
it's just
like,
filled
they're
with
like
raptors.
50 feet from the doors.
Oh, they're like, I think we lost them, and then nope, they're right there. And then they got 30 seconds left, and then they're just standing around freaking out. And then Felipe just basically, I was complaining in the beginning that Nick was doing. Felipe was a solid supporting character out of everybody.
Yeah, Felipe is awesome.
Or is it Philippe? I thought they were calling Felipe at one point.
I thought it was Felipe. I don't know.
French
the
guy.
Insurance guy. Yeah, he shoots like all the like the decorative like chandeliers. They fall, which causes like all the raptors like jump away, which gives them a chance to like run between the gap between like the fallen chandelier and the raptors. And they manage to get out within like seconds of like the missile getting launched from like the jets and destroying all Madison Square Garden.
And it explodes. They're on the ground, and Audrey's like, I didn't realize your job was this exciting. And he's like, sometimes. And she's like, I'd like to find out. And it's like, okay. And then they kiss. And then I'm like, oh, okay, great. The movie's done. Then nope, Godzilla.
He emerges from the ashes of Madison Square Garden
rises
and sees
like a phoenix.
His dead babies.
Yeah, he rides like
I will say, I did really like this next scene. They get in a cab. They're just driving, and there's the military, and then Nick throws out, it's the radio,
like the cab
ID. So O'Neill catches it and goes and finds the frequency so they can talk. And this was when O'Neill had the most personality. He was like, Nick, good. Which first of all, he threw it out, and I'm like, why is he throwing this out? Like, what did he just throw? Like, I didn't know what he was doing until, so they can talk. Okay.
Yeah, and then it's funny because like O'Neill figures that out before his men does. Like, sir, like, what are we doing here? It's like every cab keeps a frequency of their individual like radio. Like, it's like, because for the most part they make O'Neill seem more or less like an incompetent underling to General Hicks, and it's like no, he's like holding his own right now. Like, he's leading the charge right now. It's like, good for him.
They're driving, they're talking, they're stuck in a tunnel, and they're stuck in the tunnel, and they're like, hey, lead them to the Brooklyn Bridge. And they get there, and they're like, oh, he's not there. Nope, he breaks the bridge and like jumps up. And this is when I did gasp. I was like, when they are in Godzilla's mouth.
Yeah, they're literally in his mouth, and he's trying to eat them. He's got like this huge like patch of road, the cab on top of it in his mouth, and there's like a bunch of like electrical cables from the bridge. And this is actually really cool because this is like one of like the few times, because they made a like different parts of like an animatronic for Godzilla, and it was like they made one of his like feet for like a practical shots. They made a upper torso animatronic that would like be puppeteered, and then they made like a large like full scale version of his head, which they used for this shot. They didn't use like, and they also had like practical effects for like the like practical like models and like costumes for the babies, but they didn't use those that much. There was only like a couple times where they were like it was like a real thing in front of them. The most of the time, whenever like the things were running, it was just like really crappy CG. But this was like one of the few times where it's like, oh, this actually looks good.
So they're in the mouth, and they're all freaking out. Philippe's trying to get them out, and they're sliding down, and Hank Azaria's going, you're wrong way. And Philippe's like, shut up! Like, which I'm like, yes, because it was like he was trying to be like with these, let's add another zinger, and they end up getting out, and then he gets Godzilla
driving down the bridge,
entangled
in like the suspension cables, and the jets that blew up Madison Square Garden are now able to, apparently they can only shoot a target that's standing still because they've missed every shot up until this point.
I mean, I will say that's probably easiest, but still, yes. Like,
I know, but I mean,
the guy's the size of a building.
I get he's moving kind of fast.
You can hit something.
He has to move faster.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ! Like, these guys have. I've seen stormtroopers with better aim. I know I've said this before, but the aiming in this movie it's so laughably bad that there's really no way that you could write that it's like this bad. The only way that they can explain how they were able to miss like all their missile shots is because they were relying on heat sinking technology, which Godzilla is not. Like, he's cold-blooded apparently. That's the reasoning behind that. It's like, okay, you can fix that really quick. How did you explain that for like the rest of the movie, all your missed shots?
Yeah. So they shoot him, he goes down, but his eyes are still open. He's groaning, his eyes are still open, and then it zooms in.
You hear its heartbeat.
The light goes out in his eyes and it closes. And I'm like, if he was dead, he might not, his eyes might not close, but anyway, his eyes close and he's in a peaceful slumber and everyone cheers. Yay, Godzilla's dead. And I'm like, fine. And then all these reporters are showing up, and this is when Audrey, her boss, is like, we did it! We got the story!
Yeah, she
she's
quits.
like, I quit! I'm like, ugh, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And then Philippe like took like Animal's tape because Animal was like recording this whole thing.
Well, why did he take the tape?
Because he doesn't want like the French to be connected to this whole thing.
That's what he was gonna. So he was gonna keep the Godzilla, because I'm like, he can't. So he doesn't want to show that he had any part of this. Okay, that's okay.
Because he explains that he's basically like a part of like the French Secret Service, and like his whole mission there is like, I can't be discovered.
Yeah.
Like they explain that like a couple times, like when they like initially recruit Nick.
Yeah.
Because they more or less were like responsible for, like, his country was more or less responsible for the creation of this version of Godzilla, and because of like the French Polynesian like nuclear tests that they explained in the beginning of this movie, because that's where he originated from, was like a mutant iguana that came forth from that. So he said that he like calls Nick after he like basically like slinks off after Godzilla died. It's like, I'll return the tip to your friends after I remove a few items. It's like, Ova, my friend, and then they hang up, and then it cuts to Madison Square Garden, and in one of the locker rooms hidden is a singular egg, and that thing hatches and it like roars and like munches at the camera, and credits, and we get the song that was made specifically for this, that is literally just yeah,
yeah, like that's 80% of the lyrics.
It just use at least at this point just use like score music or something. It just didn't match at all. It was so random.
No.
I don't know. The whole movie was. There was something I realized. I checked my notes. I forgot. I didn't mention. So we had said really quick. We had said how there was multiple locations, and it first cuts to New York. We meet Audrey. It then cuts back to New York a little while later, but it doesn't say New York. It says the city that never sleeps. And I'm like, yeah, we've already been to New York. This isn't a new location. You don't need to tell us. We recognize New York. And also, really, that's how you're gonna label it. It just it came off so stupid, and I was like,
it was really cheesy. Yeah,
very outraged. But anyway, so yeah, this movie is ridiculous. It is not boring.
It's wildly entertaining, but it feels like it goes on way longer, especially when it has like that kind of fake out ending of it's like, oh, the nest is destroyed, like we all lived happily ever after.
I did like the climax a lot. I thought the beginning was super solid, and I thought the climax, the very end, was solid. This needed at least like 2 more rewrites. It was very problematic.
Yeah.
A lot of things didn't make sense. It also, like we said before, it was insanely rushed. This just seemed like a first draft. Some of these characters were just useless and not like brought up. And I can't say this enough. It bothered me so much that Nick was just so knowledgeable and knew so much. And then once he's with Philippe, Philippe's the one that's not like he was a solid supporting character. I liked Hank Azaria's character. He was more entertaining than Audrey, but but I don't know. It's definitely not boring.
But the funny thing is that Sony Pictures and by association TriStar Pictures got the rights to Godzilla in 1992 and were originally supposed to release a movie in 1994, and that was the Stan Winston one. But they literally spent years like rewrite. This isn't like the first script. They rewrote like multiple different versions of the script, and then they released this version in 1998. But like the script treatments and like the images, set images, and like all the stuff that they had for like the previous one with Stan Winston seem way cooler than this. Like it's actually like Godzilla fighting like another monster rather than just a generic origin story of him fighting the military.
The thing was, I did like, like, also, a lot of these characters I did like. I just should have liked them more. They just weren't developed very well.
Yeah, they didn't get a whole lot of screen time. It was pretty much just General Hicks, Nick, Philippe, Audrey. That was it. That was like the main cast of characters that you get to focus on.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I do enjoy this movie. It does have like a lot of nostalgic. Like I get it, like very nostalgic about this movie because I grew up watching this, like this in Jurassic Park and like all those movies, and this was pretty much like my introduction to like the rest of the Godzilla series. Because after I found out about this movie and I liked it so much as a kid, I wanted to like, oh, are there any other ones? And I would go to my local Blockbuster and like pretty much every other week I would get like some new Godzilla movie and just like fell in love with like the series from that point forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, even though this isn't like the best Godzilla movie, I still look back on it very fondly because of that.
Yeah. Let's just say this now. So we obviously judge and love judging and critiquing movies, but I make an effort. If you love a movie, if anyone loves a movie, I'm trying to make, whatever the reason, especially if it's nostalgia purposes, I'm not going to ever try to make someone feel bad for liking something. It makes you happy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause I feel like everybody, like, somebody likes a movie and it's like, why? It's like, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You don't like it. Fine. Like, it's a huge pet peeve of mine. That's why I want to make that point. Like,
it's like I can like bad movies but like I can admit like this movie's bad. Like it's not good, but I still like it.
Yeah.
But it's like that doesn't mean that like other people shouldn't like movies because they're bad. You can like bad movies, but don't be afraid to admit that these movies are bad.
That's really just what we want, because it always drives me insane when people. I mean, I don't want to necessarily. It depends on the person. I don't necessarily want to make someone. I'm not going to make someone feel bad for liking a movie. Just don't try to convince me that it's good. I'm like, love it. If you want to love it, go ahead. Just don't convince me that this is the best thing ever or the most amazing made, but like not specifically this movie. Just in general. But, I could tell. Like it was like I said, it was entertaining the whole way through. It was just ridiculous, but it was entertaining.
Yeah. It had a lot going for it, but there were bits where it just fell flat. Especially with like the Siskel and Ebert joke, like that went absolutely nowhere.
It just the whole movie just could have been monster. It didn't even specifically need to be Godzilla. Like, there was no real time to be Godzilla.
This movie was more or less Cloverfield, but 8 years early.
There's a joke though. I saw on IMDb that people would call it Geno, Godzilla, or I don't remember what the name. It was like Godzilla only in name, or Goina. I don't know. Yeah. Like, yes, it's kind of like Troll 2. Yes, it's called Troll 2, but it's not at all related. Almost.
Yeah,
almost.
No, like this movie is like more or less.
This is trying to be Godzilla.
This movie is more or less just Zilla, because like this movie exists within like the one of like the Godzilla. Like Godzilla has like multiple timelines, but this movie does exist in one of like their like later timelines because they did buy the rights and like reintroduce the character later on into one of their movies. So this movie does exist as part of like the Toho, like one of the established Toho timelines, which I think is really cool because this movie is technically a part of the Godzilla universe, even though this character in and of itself is not Godzilla.
Yeah,
it's like that's kind of cool how they did that. I just thought that was like kind of cool, but it was also kind of a power move that they sold the rights to the character only to rebuy the rights to that character that was made and then reintroduce it not as their character. It's like that is a power move if I've ever heard it.
So yeah.
I think I pretty much said like all my piece about Godzilla. I'm all tapped out now.
Yeah.
I think this might be our longest episode yet.
Oh, probably.
Oh my
watch it.
God.
I keep waiting. I feel like all of ours time out around the same amount, and I'm like, I can't wait to see. So, so we got to talk. So in news last week, at least I think, yeah, it was last week, or the trailer for season 4 of Stranger Things dropped. Did you see that?
Yes, yeah,
And
the teaser. Yeah, the teaser is like from
Russia with Love. It's like
and
the working
Hopper is
title.
alive, which is I was like, yay! But also, I cheered, but I'm like, his face is on the cup. Like, that's the image for the trailer, like on YouTube. And I saw it, and my first thought was, yeah, right. Like, I thought it was a fake, like a fan made one. And then I checked IMDb, and it was like the first thing there. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it was real. So then I watched it, and I was like, oh, yay!
At first, I thought it was.
At first, I thought it was. At first, I thought it was like, oh, is this just like released footage of like that character from like that actor's character from Black Widow because he's in a Russian prison, and that's what I thought it was. It's like, oh, it's just him in a gulag.
But yay! Which I gotta say, I'm not at all shocked that he's alive. If anything, I'm more shocked that they showed us that he's alive.
Yeah,
in the trailer.
That's kind of like a main.
That's a huge spoiler.
I really, the Duffer Brothers do really good work. So I'm kind of like, okay, I'll hear you out, because they've, every season they've managed to surprise us. So I'm kind of, but also, to be fair, I think because I didn't really think he was dead specifically because we didn't see him die. There was no closure to it.
Yeah, I figured that he was alive as well.
But then they also said like, what was it in like the end? They called it the American or whatever.
Yeah. They says like, oh yeah, we'll throw in the American next, but like a lot of theories was that it was like Eleven's father, like the main guy who like
ran like the project in like the first season.
Yeah,
Papa. Yeah. But yeah, that was the main like theory going into it, is like, oh no, it can't be Hopper already. It's like, how did he get in Russia like so soon? But yeah, I guess time will tell when summer comes around.
Is that coming out in summer? I didn't see when it was coming out.
Yeah, I'm believe it's slated out for like June or July, because the season 3 came out like 4th of July.
Because there was the whole climax takes place on 4th of July. So that was when that happened.
But yeah, for the most part, they have like summer. They usually come out on like a fairly regular
summer release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That.
So yeah, later this year we'll probably get a release date.
But all of I remember reading, this was a while ago, that said that they were going to end it on season 4. That was going to be the last one. And I haven't seen.
I heard it was season 5.
Maybe it was 5. I thought it was 4, and I'm like, why am I only seeing like because whenever things get renewed, it'll say for a whatever and final season, and it didn't do that. Yeah. So I'm like, maybe it was 5. I thought it was 4, but either way, I don't. Not that it matters. I'm glad to get more, but I think I was excited because I'm like, I have a lot of respect for when they know ahead of time when it's going to end, as opposed to let's just keep it going.
Yeah. It's very easier to wrap up a story when you know how many pages in a book you have.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else? Do you have anything you want to add, or?
No, like
I just pretty like I basically just had like so much like material on like Godzilla, and I'm just glad that I was able to like share some of that knowledge. I was really looking forward when you said like, yeah, we'll do this for this one, because like, oh, yes, I literally pulled out like my VHS copy
of this movie.
You still have a VHS player?
I have a VHS player.
I had one, and then I remember I had it like by like still senior year of high school. I had one. But I think eventually, I don't know, it's gone now. I don't have it anymore.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your loss.
My loss, yeah. No, we have an old-timey projector. That's how I watch my movies.
Yes. I watch my stuff on Laserdisc.
Do you really have Laserdisc?
No, I wish. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. I'd want that for certain movies, not like...
Yeah, like, I would want that for, like, the original for Star Wars and, like, a couple other movies. Like there was actually a in an antique store in Chico back when I went there, and they were selling like a few like movies on Laserdisc, and one of them was Terminator 2
Oh,
and the seventh Voyage of Sinbad, but and like a few other ones, but it's like I'm so tempted to get some of these, but it's like I didn't have like a player or anything with him, but it's like but the nostalgic value and like it's just they were also like kind of expensive.
that's me with I couple like 2 years ago or so, I bought a vinyl, and I bought two. It was one of Gone with the Wind, and one was Pinocchio. And I just thought the artwork was cool, as well as, oh, this is like the. But the problem is, I'm like, I don't have a vinyl player. My friend's like, you could hang it up. It's artwork, whatever. But then I just kept getting more. That I'm like, you know what? I have too many, and I don't have a way to play them. Maybe I should get one.
Yeah.
So
so yeah.
as always,
I guess
if you have not seen, I know we keep forgetting to say this in the beginning. Maybe don't listen if you're into spoilers. We say this in the beginning. I keep forgetting. We are on, like we said, we're on Facebook. You can find us at Movie Reel Podcast, as well as like we're on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. So please listen, review us. That would be great. And yeah.
Leave a like, share, subscribe if you can, and leave comments on what movies you guys want us to do. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep doing movies we want to do.
And we have plenty.
Oh yes, I'm very much looking forward to next week.
There's just a long list of. There's so many movies that I can't wait to do, but I know we can only do it though with the right person. Like when we,
Yeah.
Oh wait, we didn't tell our history with this movie. So I was thinking about this the whole time I was watching it. So last spring, last May.
Oh right,
Kevin
yeah.
and I and one of our friends, Josie, we went to Disneyland for a few days. A lot of fun, and
yeah. Whenever we went back to the hotel, for I want to say like 2 or 3 nights in a row, whenever I would turn on the TV, the movie that was playing was the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie.
Or no, and you say it was the Mummy.
Oh no, wait, it was the Mummy 3, and it was always during the same part where like him fighting with with Brendan Fraser fighting with the Yetis, and on the third night it's like, oh man, it's not the Mummy anymore, it's the Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie.
It became a joke.
I guess I'll watch this.
It became a joke. He told us, I turned on the TV and it was the third Mummy movie, and it was at the Yeti scene. And it happened the next day. And then he's like, when I get back to my room, I'll turn on the TV and let you guys know. And then we're all just chilling out for a little bit. We get a text from Kevin saying, oh, it's not the Mummy. It's Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. And for some reason, I thought this was so funny. It wasn't that. It was one thing if he just said it wasn't the Mummy, but it was the extra information like that made me laugh so hard. I was just like, it was.
I know, because I was like a little disappointed that it wasn't the Mummy for a third night in a row, because that would have just been hilarious. But it's like, oh, it's Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. Lame.
Oh well, I'll watch it anyway.
Extra bit of information I just thought was so funny, and it wasn't even that funny. I wasn't like on the floor crying or anything. I was just like, I don't know. I just really got a kick out of that extra bit of unnecessary information, or necessary, I guess. I was thinking about this the whole movie.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, on that note, I'm Kevin Tracy.
I'm Samantha Tomlinson, and thanks for listening to Movie Reel. Bye.
See you next time.
Bye.